Hello, hello, and welcome to Awaken Your Human Design. My name is Moni. This is Danny, and we have a fun show for you today. We're going to be continuing our year-long series going through the Godheads in Human Design. So today is going to be Parvati and Ma'at.
And I'm learning these names as we go along. Moni's in the lead on this one. I'm so glad you wanted to take this by the bull by the horn, Moni. This is good.
Thanks. I'm glad you're willing to go along on the ride for me because, yeah, Godheads are one of those things you don't typically hear about in human design. And then maybe you see it in passing and you're like, what is this? And it's kind of like, ooh, eerie and a little confusing.
I started doing it. I started doing the Godheads, and then I was like, I was still wanting the other core information. I just went back to tones. I remember that I was like, oh, whatever. I'll come back to it someday. Here we are.
And here we are. We're
someday.
Doing it. The someday has arrived.
Has arrived.
So thank you to everyone who is watching and liking and subscribing and asking us questions and helping us grow. It's really, really exciting watching this grow from a wee itty bitty channel. So thanks for being here with us, and let's get into it. So here we have this really beautiful view. I mostly picked this image just because I want to show it on here because it's really pretty. So here you can see the 16 Godheads around the Mandala wheel. And so these 16 Godheads, there's 16 archetypal themes. So we're going to go into it explaining it. The last time when we first began the series, we started here in this quarter of civilization down here at the bottom in green. And we started with Maya and Lakshmi. And so now, as we're approaching the summer solstice, we're going to go into Parvati and Ma'at.
Yep, that's right. It's all coming back to me now, Moni. I remember the other two.
This is a really fun chart. We did a full episode on this, so I definitely encourage you to check that out if you want to get into the full details. So I'll link that. Here we'll go briefly over it. This is where we can see how we go from the single yin-yang, where we have the yin, which is feminine and magnetic, and the yang, which is masculine and electric, the yin being the open line, the yang being the solid line. So in order to develop through this, we take the single yin line and we duplicate it here at the bottom, and then we add another yin and a yang. And then the same with the yang, we duplicate the yang at the bottom and then add another yin and a yang on top. So that's how we go from the single yin-yang into the 4 base pairs.
This was the magic that interfaced where it made sense, and we finally recognized that what Watson and Crick had discovered in our genome is mirrored first here. There's 4 base pair of human genome that everything else is built on. Not 3, not 10, not 1,000, 4. And they are this. This is where the magic begins. I thought it was worth mentioning.
Oh, absolutely. How this all goes into the genetic code. Yeah, that's in their other episode, which I'll link to, where it actually goes into the yin, yang, into the binary code, and into the genetic expression. So super nerdy, super cool. But for our purposes, we're doing a little summation. So here we have our 4 base pairs, and then we're just going to do the same thing where we're going to take this double yin line and duplicate it at the bottom, and then add another yin and the yang on top. And we do that for all of them with the yin, yang. Those are at the bottom duplicated, then another yin, yang on top. The yang, yin, duplicated at the bottom with another yin, yang on top. And then finally, the double yang base pair duplicated here at the bottom with another yin, yang on top. This is showing us how we then go into the 8 trigrams of the I Ching, from the single yin, yang to the 4 base pairs to the 8 trigrams.
And as we're in the Godheads, just bear in mind, the 8 trigrams will have the same bottom 3 lines, right?
Yeah, for the lines, for the trigrams, the hexagrams, we're going from the bottom building upwards. Here we have our mandala view of the wheel with the yin-yang, the base pairs, the trigrams, the Godheads, the 5 lines, which I don't think they have any special title, and then finally you have the full 6 lines of the hexagram on the outside of the wheel. So this is like our foundation that we're playing with, and then we're going to be cutting this up into smaller and smaller pieces for this exploration. So for this, we're going to be focusing on our Godheads, which is this 4th line out from the yin-yang, just to make it a little simpler. So the Godheads are basically our 4th line externalization of the 8 trigrams.
And that externalization is wicked important. The fourth line is the announcer, the broadcaster. Every line has their function that of holding and keeping continuity within society. And one of the main continuities of the fourth line is the marketing department, always spitting out the message. And they're not spitting it out on TV, although they may. They're spitting it out to their friends and their network, because becoming influential is part of the genetic programming. It's the need of this being in order to live their fullest life, is to master things in certain ways that they can become influential, at least on something. And that's what this is. So the Godheads are incredibly influential, is the point.
Yeah, they're like the spokesperson for
Fixed
the
talker.
trigram.
You can't ask Jesus to be Vishnu, and you can't ask Vishnu to be Prometheus, right? You just can't. They're fixed. They're one way, and that's fixedness is part of that fourth line, one of the characteristics of it.
So we're going to keep cutting this wheel up into like smaller pie pieces. So this wheel shows us the quarter of civilization. So the quarter of civilization, in this time, all throat gates are activated. And so there's this pressure to manifest and this verbal and acoustic articulation and expression. And it's about getting things done, building and making things. And for our keynotes, it's purpose fulfilled through form. The mystical theme is from womb to room.
Yeah, that's the initiation part, moving through the initiation and coming here to actually build the thing. And to the room is also part of the maturation part that builds the things around it.
Absolutely. And then to go back into our yin yang line expression, here you can see from the single base yin yang, this is going to have a double yin base pair, which is Dubhe, which we'll explain on the next page. But you can see here it's got this double yin line, which is duplicated at the bottom. And then there's another yin added for earth, which is what we did last episode. And this time where there's the yang on top of the double yin, that's the mountain trigram, and that's what we're going to be diving into.
So basically, as we move around this piece from gate 15 in the middle with part of the vessel to 33 ending at the four ways, the first three lines will be mountain, yin, yin, yang. And so that's what holds these things together. They have the same base pair, just like with us. As above, so below, basically. I love that about this whole system. That expression keeps ringing true. In fact, it gives great predictive power. As out there, so in here. You just say that to yourself, and it will help explain something if you currently have a doubt about it or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love, like, initially when you look at all these like open, closed lines, it can be really confusing because it just like a lot is happening. There's lines, you don't understand it. But once you break it down simpler, it's actually like super logical. And that's what I really enjoy about this. I'm like, you guys, I swear it's not that confusing. Just like roll with us. It'll be really fun.
And it's always a good idea to take the wheel and have your gray study with it, have your meditation upon it. Spend time looking at these hexagrams and images like this for a little while and just get lost in trying to refiguring and figuring. It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's like endlessly beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Here we're going to talk about the quarter of civilization, which as the double yin base pair is represented as Dubhe, which Dubhe is the alpha star of the Ursa major constellation, also known as the Great Bear. And it's the Big Dipper pointer star guiding to Polaris, which is the North Star. So at night, if you go out and you see the Big Dipper, you follow it from that like ladle into the little scoopy part. And if you follow so you got the ladle, and then you got the scoopy part, and then this purple star I put on to represent like Dubhe. So if you follow that trajectory, that line outward, that will always point to the North Star because it loops around the North Star.
Yep.
This quarter of civilization is about taking the mental inspiration sparked in the first quarter and turning it into something tangible, building, structuring, and manifesting the material world, the realm of form, where purpose is fulfilled through physical expression, societal constructs, and refinement of resources. Dubhe as the energetic overseer of civilization's foundation, where human potential meets the physical world, and the bear's steady strength guiding humanity to navigate and shape the material plane and setting the stage for the relational duality and transformative mutation quarters to follow.
Yeah, we all have to have a place to hang our hat while the next two quarters come and go. And then we start all over again. Mind. So we're born with mind. Both birth and mind sort of are together, and they lead into this great building of everything, the whole structuring. I mean, when we went over Earth, a big point we had made, remember, was the whole fact that the first four hexagrams of Earth were all unique and individual and contributory. There were 23, there were 8, there were 2, 20, if my memory serves. That individual unique spark, and then we moved into a couple things we described. We went through a little bit of crisis, and then we come to the vessel where we're going to understand again. And we're at it, by the way. I think that's one
It's
of
the
the
summer
next
solstice.
Yeah, it's the next incarnation cross coming up.
Yeah, that'll be around like the 19th, 20th, 21st of the month. We'll hit that. Here, we're cutting that big hexagram wheel into an even smaller piece of the pie. We're focusing now on mountain, right? This is the trigram that is like the foundation of what we're talking about here. So for the yin-yang line representation, you have the double yin with the yang on top, which is mountain. So if you duplicate that at the bottom, here they have the same 3 lines at the bottom, and then there's a yin and a yang on top, which is how you'll get Parvati and Ma'at, which we'll be talking about. This 4th line, right? The trigram is 3 lines, and now the Godheads have 4 lines. So it's the 4th line externalization of the mountain trigram. The mountain trigram being about creating personal stillness amid change.
And it seems like a yang force too. The mountain forces its way up from Mother Earth itself. It's almost as if it's trying to go about its business in a way. So this quarter, these 8 hexagrams right in a row make this mountain. And Moni, can you refresh our memory as to sort of what was the essence of Earth?
So Earth, which is what we did last time, Earth is that pure feminine. It's 3 open, broken lines, which is pure feminine for pure receptivity, that pure magnetic that is receiving, and thus then like the giving Mother Earth kind of vibes.
Right. Okay, cool. The place from which civilization can be built uniquely, essentially. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was what we were doing for the last 8 gates, and then now we're going to get into 15 on is
so we're
mountain.
About to determine, by talking through all of this, what mountain means. Didn't we? We probably did that last time too, what Earth meant as we went through the gates.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I get to find this stuff out now. It's beautiful.
I know, it's really fun watching you because we're like, oh, I'm learning as we go. Yeah, so it's kind of neat because if you think of like the 4th line, like your friend who's a 4th line, who's really friendly and chatty and is here to like socialize and externalize, it's like that except for this mountain trigram. So I love the idea of like these Godheads, which is kind of like an ooky spooky, like intense word. They're kind of like figureheads and like spokespeople for the trigram that they represent.
Yeah, let's give mountain a sort of a new look at mountain to a little bit. I noticed it's the 2nd trigram right after the love of humanity comes and goes, and then we move into gate 52 with the mountain.
It's mountain over mountain will be that 2nd one.
Yeah, right. The 52. I'm just talking about its name in the I Ching. The whole stillness as an inaction for assessment, so that you can basically gather the resource to focus. Focus can't happen when you're jogging and something else. You know what I mean? You got to sit still. I guess you could focus while you're jogging, but I'm just saying, you're sitting still focuses the mind, and it brings the taming power of the small, into focus is what this does. So it being the 2nd hexagram means it's a part of the name. I wonder if it holds true in the other sections of the wheel.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
So Parvati is the yin externalization of mountain, representing gates 15, 52, 39, and 53. In terms of mythology, Parvati is an Indian goddess and the consort of Shiva and the mother of Ganesh. Parvati embodies stillness, devotion, and patience through challenge, holding the balance between stillness and action, surrender and determination, and the quiet power of transformation. Parvati represents this gentle yet enduring force that shapes mountains over time. Her steadfast presence that nurtures growth, refines strength, and holds space for transformation. And the sacred balance between rest and movement, contemplation and initiation, challenge and grace. And when Ra was talking about Parvati in the Godhead lectures, he really focused on marriage, fertility, and the devotion to the spouse, as well as the root pressure that is necessary to build civilization, which is the order that we are in. So Parvati calls us to honor the sacred cycles of growth, to embrace both stillness and movement as necessary forces of transformation, and to trust that true strength is born from deep inner alignment.
This is intense. The first four gates as we went into them. So they were 15, 52, right?
39 and
30.
53.
I like this. So each time I look at something like this, no matter how short it gets, as long as there's three or more, I like to give the last one and call it part of the four ways, meaning for this little section, this is the way. 15 basically starts out the meaning. So the love of humanity must sit still to focus. And it's a provocative process, not a fighting process, because we're provoking a spirit that we're about to experience and start something. This is the way. This is the way of starting the civilization into its fullness. This is the love of humanity bringing civilization into its fullness. So when it gets into the next four gates, it can finally remember and be that prodigal, because as we get this far on the wheel, more and more definitions are being made. As soon as we get to the end of this, the channel of the prodigal now is made, right? Because 13 was in the beginning. So I like this movement.
Good.
Is there anything you can add to that? Because I'm putting it together as far as what it seems like the gates would do with us.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I like that you tie that all together because, yeah, so 15 is that extremes, that love of humanity, and that finding the place for everything in humanity within its like place that it goes. If you put things in their
Right.
proper place, you can have the full expression of life. So there's this extremes and this love of humanity that comes right with the summer solstice, the extremes of, daylight hitting us. And then 52 is about stillness, reflection. 52 is mountain over mountain. So 52 is like super mountain. So that's very apt. 39, as you were saying, that provocation of the spirit, because 39 links up with 55, which is spirit. So 39 is that pokey provocation. And then 53 is that beginning something new and that continuation and that growth of something.
It's just so cool. Consult the spirit before we finish defining this hunk of the way. And the way is the love of humanity. And 53 becomes the thing that locks it in. And or whichever way that would go. And 15 would be the lock, and 53 is the key that opens up its beauty as we move into the next four gates. So the balance of the extremes leading finally to the starting of something new, but it must it consults the spirit. Notice the spirit's not here, 55.
It's the pokiness.
But the
The
pokiness
provocation of 39.
yeah. So, but spirit's in the world. So part of the deal is, hey, the spirit's all around. Just because it's not in the section of the wheel, we're provoking it. We must get the spirit must speak back before we start. Consult. We built the temples in the first 8 hexagrams. Now at this beginning of the second 8 hexagrams, bring the power of the love, because don't forget these tantra channels get the generated juice. So it's a guaranteed generated function. The love of humanity as a generated function moves into the root pressure, like Ra says, to assess, and now consult the spirit before you start. I just find that so lovely. In this section, this is the section of the love of humanity that consults the spirit along the way. So gate 15 has a love of humanity, and it consults with the spirit as part of how that would inform the being. We could read that into gate 15 forevermore now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting also because it's this yin externalization of mountain. So mountain is that stillness, that quiet power, right, to take it all in and process through something, and then that yin externalization. So that idea like marriage, fertility, and devotion to the spouse, because then you were talking about like love of humanity. So there is this devotion to family and like the work of the mother for the family to survive and the root pressure to make it happen.
It's the very definition of, if you would like to give, you must first receive. And here we are in the receptive. The way of this whole quarter is to receive. And then 15 is, the way of the extremes and the love of humanity to find something to start. So you better start receiving if you want that to work. And here we are. Yay.
Yay. So here we have Ma'at, or apparently Ross said it's supposed to be pronounced Mu'at. So take it as either as you prefer, because I've heard it as both. But Ma'at or Mu'at is the yang externalization of mountain, representing gates 62, 56, 31, and 33. And within mythology, Ma'at is the Egyptian goddess of cosmic law, order, and justice. She embodies truth, balance, wisdom of storytelling, and binding civilization to its tradition, and the establishment of absolutes rooted in fact. Ma'at or Mu'at as the immovable judge, ensuring that words, actions, and knowledge are weighed against the principles of balance and integrity. Within Egyptian mythology, Anubis weighs the heart in the afterlife with Ma'at's feather representing truth, justice, and cosmic order, ensuring balance and truth are upheld. Ma'at as the guiding force of civilization and structure of wisdom in leadership. Ma'at calls us to use knowledge with discernment, to lead with integrity, and to trust that the foundation of truth is what keeps the world in balance.
In the beginning of this piece of the wheel, these 8 hexagrams, the first 4 of them, were busy with taking that love of humanity to poke at the spirit, to start something in a very feminine way that looks out very deeply for the structures of it. Spoke basically of the structures of family, because that's part of civilization. It's not civilization without the family. So basically that's what the first Godhead was saying. What was her name again?
Parvati.
Parvati, yeah. Now Mu'at is basically the conquer. It's the yang. It sounds like the yang energy of it. Let's concretize this. Let's get married. Let's make it official. And it also sounds biblical. You know, let your words be what you mean, and let you mean what you say, type thing.
Your word is your bond.
Literally, and like the whole thing about you shouldn't have to swear to God. You're automatically there already. You just let the words come out of your mouth be that which is true, basically. You know,
don't bear false witness.
Yeah. And so this is the taking from the structure in the beginning. So the whole thing is tempered with the direction of the contribution, making the structure of it all right now. Those are the first 4 hexagrams of this quarter, starting at 2. And so all that uniqueness has poured into finally. So the uniqueness gives way to the pair bonding and that which keeps the family together, built in the structure of the whole of this quarter is about making sure the family's all set before we move into duality with honor. There's like an honor and integrity part here, big time, because the details are here, you know, and details are dull without the stimulation of being able to manifest it. All 4 throat gates right in a row, right?
Oh,
So
those are,
31, the leadership brings us then to the what did leadership to what? Tell us. And 33 says, I remember, and it tells. And now this whole quarter is sewn up. It's totally empowered and finally logically shared. This is all logical abstract. Notice every other. So it's like the sharing machine is going back and forth between the understanding and the sensing of the collective circuitry.
That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting breaking it down because gate 62, it's part of that scientific method. It's that logical splenic side, that the details to test the opinions of gate 17. So there's like establishment of absolutes rooted in facts, truth, right? That's important. So like the very beginning of this section is about logical, factual details rooted in truth. And then, as you said, switching over to that abstract solar plexus storytelling side with gate 56, which is like stimulation and storytelling. And like, I'm going to be really fun and make it interesting for you to listen to. So it's like,
you know what yes, it says 56 was never meant to simply tell wild stories. 56 was always meant to tell stories rooted in some kind of detail.
In fact.
In fact, yeah, details. Well, details. Yeah, and fact. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, because it's kind of interesting because the best stories, even though it can be a fantastical story, it has to be rooted in facts, right? Of the archetypes of the human experience. Like if you come up with some crazy stuff, like you're going to lose people. Like fairy tales are like up to like 20,000 years old or even more, or something crazy like that. But
yeah,
the reason why they do have this longevity to them is because they are based in these absolute truths, the symbols that we experience as humans. So it is interesting that this idea of storytelling, even though it can be fluffed up, you can make it interesting to make it more palatable. It is rooted in something logical and factual.
Yeah, this just seems very logical and at the same time storytelling. So if we look at the same lock and key mechanisms, these four hexagrams under this Godhead, and the way of this young lady starts out logical. The way is the way of the details that have some kind of structure that identifies with something that will help move us forward. You know, and it has to help move us forward because we want to share it. So you can't share stuff that doesn't move us forward. And then it waffles back and forth into, after that's all done, to tell us about it. Don't let the knowledge go unrecorded. So,
yeah, that makes sense too, because like Muat as cosmic law, order, and justice, the mythology that Ra chose to represent this.
absolutely, because basically what that says is law and order, justice, and all of that. That stuff. That's record keeping. Those people keep records. Basically, that's a logical thing to do. And this is all record keeping. There's some powerful pentagates in here in the 31 and the 33.
It's interesting, even visualizing it like in your mind's eye of like the throat center of the 62 and the 31 are like mirrored on opposite sides of each other, and the 56 and the 33, that bouncing back and forth between the logical and the abstract.
Yeah, absolutely. And the 56 gets to be just as creative as it wants. It's interesting that the details before they give their final goodbye and become the way of, so what was the deal? What's the scoop? Because we're moving into next quarter after 33, and 33 is answering that as the prodigal. So that's a very impacting answer. All gates to the throat, except for the top ones, have the potential to be the manifester, have the potential to be any of the types, really. It says that as we get this details, and then the details turn into the story at the same time, what an assist of each other. You know what I mean? A perfect assist. We move into two of the only three expressions of the penta, and we run into two of them. 2/3 of the penta's expression is right at the end of this. So all you little family units, you're all gathered around because I'm the sun in this position these 2 weeks, this time every single year. So the chances of this making more active pentas are, well, it's 12 gates, 1/12. So what's 1/12 of 1 billion of 8 billion people? That's a lot of extra penta juice, essentially, or close to that. So I find that fascinating. Let's make sure the penta has spoke before we move into, not just make sure the details, that's all individual. Maybe we share it, maybe we don't. But the penta is a cohesive unit, and it's always the family and or the workplace, but it's first always the family. I mean, I guess there's some exceptions to that, but not really. And so family pentas get together before we move into the duality with the details. Don't fake get together. I'm keeping record. I had a ton of details. We've even told stories about it. I'm now influentially telling you. Write it down so we can move on. These mythical figures, it seems like they're imbued with these aspects, obviously. What would we say about Parvati if she's got these? There's a provocative part of her. And I wonder why he picked that. For which gate did he most pick?
I know Ra said, it's like these are all like figureheads. This is, you know, what Ra came up with to fill in the chart and to like explore these ideas. And what he said was that he could have picked other mythological deities and whatnot to fit in, but of that general vibe is what he picked for each of them. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I remember that part of the speech, actually.
Yeah,
I got that far at least. Parvati, I would like to, well, I just want to sort of anthropomorphize her. I want to bring her to life a little bit more. All I did was really say cool mechanical stuff about the wheel, not so much about her.
Indian goddess, the consort of Shiva, the mother of Ganesh, like
the mother of Ganesh and the love of humanity seem to feel like good together. When you say mother of Ganesh, my eyebrows rose. I was like, Ganesh, no kidding, huh?
Yeah.
Yep. Love of all things. I do know that the other one,
Ma'at is how it's commonly,
Ma'at.
but Ra said it was Mu'at.
Mu'at.
So,
yeah.
And that,
well, Mu'at, the practical one, I would say Mu'at reminds me a little bit of who was the professor of the X-Men, played by Jean-Luc Picard there.
So like Dr. X?
Dr. Xavier. The one in the wheelchair. Oh yeah, Dr. X for X-Men.
Xavier,
X-Men. Yeah, Xavier with Xavier School, right? It just reminds me of like that kind of figurehead. Kept it all together. There had to be duty and honor. There was work being done, and there was a story being told. And it feels like this Mu'at would be the final voice echoing over this quarter of civilization to give it an assuredness to move on. And that was one thing that he always did. Professor Xavier, he always made sure things seemed like they were going to work out and told us what the deal was and was influential about that and led the way, just like 31 and 33 could do.
And that base of the mountain trigram, like mountain is about stillness. It's about steadfast. It's, it's that quiet separation to become clear on something. So like Parvati, there's almost, I don't want to say coldness, but there is like almost like a dryness to her. And with Mu'at, it's, what I thought was cool is the Egyptian mythology part of it, where it's Anubis weighs the heart in the afterlife with Mu'at's feather, representing truth, justice, and the cosmic order, ensuring balance and truth are upheld. So that idea of like weighing the heart to the feather, and like that sense of like the balance.
What's the story of that? That's right. That's a good parable, basically. That the heart should weigh. I forgot what the whole deal with it was, but it was.
Yeah, it's like, does it weigh less than a feather? And it's Mu'at's feather that it's being weighed against.
Because the heart should be light and not heavy and drowning. I got it.
Yeah.